Senate bill. So this is kind of a combination. We want it to hold just an informational hearing to pick up some information on these topics and what was referred to us, and get a little background on it. I think, like I said, one we've had several times, and the other one has been around and in different committees before, just not this one. So would like to start out today and ask our revisor, David, if he would kind of give us a little, his rundown on it, and then we'll go to research and get that rundown, and then we've got a few people that are going to present some information for us. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. Yes, House Bill 2237, as it was amended by the Senate Committee of the Whole, would extend the sunset date on the Rural Opportunity Zone Program from July 1, 2023 to July 1, 2026, expands eligibility for the RAWS income tax credit, and makes changes to the Child Care Services Assistance Tax Credit. If you kind of look at, you see the first couple pages of the bill, we got a lot of stricken material there. If you realize this bill was actually introduced in the 2021 session originally by this committee. And at the time, that had that population of 40,000 or more on the rural opportunity zones, and it was going to extend out RAWS, 2 years at that point to 2023. All that was actually taken care of, in Senate Bill 47. You might remember we had a review of that at the beginning of the session. So that took care of that. So the definition of RAWS does include counties with population of 40,000 or less, and was extended through 2023. So the Senate saw that and realized we don't need that old language anymore, so they struck what was sections 1 and 2 of the bill relating to RAWS, and then we're inserting the current law, the 2021 subversions of RAWS, to take care of and then make those further amendments. So that's kind of where we are procedurally on that. Section 1 of the bill, as amended by Senate Committee of the Whole, amends KSA 7932-190. This is the Child Care Daycare Services Assistance Tax Credit statute. The bill allows the credit against the income or privilege tax for all tax years after 2020, and it would be 50% of the amount equal to the total amount expended during the tax year as payments to an organization providing access to available child daycare services for the taxpayer's employees. Under current law, the credit is not available for such payments to organizations, and that credit is now under current law is only available to taxpayers subject to the corporate income tax. So this kind of removes that restriction that they be corporate income tax payers, expands it, and then expands it for these payments for organizational payments for daycare services. Section 2 amends KSA 2021 sub 74-50-223. This is the RAWS student loan repayment program, and extends that from 2023 to 2026, and then also extends that reporting requirement of the Secretary of Commerce to certain legislative committees from January 1, 2024 to January 1, 2027. So it's really just a 3-year extension of the student loan repayment program. And then Section 3 also does that same thing for the RAWS income tax credit statute, extends it through tax year 2026, and adds additional criteria for when an individual taxpayer would be eligible to use the RAWS tax credit. Under the bill, if a resident establishes domicile in a RAWS on or after July 1, 2021, and prior to January 1 of 2026, and was domiciled in a metropolitan county immediately prior to establishing domicile in a RAWS county, and was domiciled in RAWS for the entire taxable year in which the credit is claimed, that resident individual tax payer would be entitled to claim the RAWS income tax credit. Metropolitan county is defined as Douglas, Johnson, Leavenworth, Sedgwick, Shawnee, or Wyandotte counties. That's defined by statute. And I will point out, Mr. Chairman, I think there was just a typo in the bill where we are referencing those metropolitan counties. The bill says, as defined in KSA 7550-211, that reference that should actually be 7450-211. So there's just a typo in there on the statutory reference. That's page 7 line 18 of the bill. So that's something that this committee might want to consider as a technical amendment. But other than that, Mr. Chairman, I can stay in for any questions.
Questions for David? Representative Burkamp?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Butler County wasn't listed, is that correct? On the
As a metropolitan county? Yeah, it's Douglas, Johnson, Leavenworth, Sedgwick, Shawnee, or Wyandotte.
Okay, thank you.
David, on the child care credit, was that at one time, could the LLCs and all do it, and then when they weren't paying tax, then it didn't apply or came out and it just never was put back in?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the history of that child care tax credit. I'm not sure if it was LLCs and then went to just corporate or vice versa. I mean, I'd have to check on that, but yeah, as of right now, currently it's only for the corporate income tax.
Okay.
Payers, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for David? Thank you, David. Now I'd like to have Melissa Rennick come up and kind of give us some additional background. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly. Committee members, KLRD reviewed the subject matter of House Bill 2237 as amended by Senate Committee of the Whole. And as David noted, some of those RAWS provisions that were added in, he noted some of the RAWS provisions still remained, and those were added in a Senate committee amendment last year. Those were retained in the bill, as well as the child daycare assistance tax credit, which was added by Senate Committee of the Whole. In our review of legislation that was filed or amended in this biennium related to the child daycare tax credit, we located 4 bills whose topics included this child care tax credit. House Bill 2237, Senate Bill 263, a bill by Ways and Means, Senate Bill 426, which was a sponsor bill by Senator Sykes, and House Bill 2414, a bill by the Committee on Taxation. Senate Bill 263 was recommended favorably on March 29, 2021 by the Senate Committee, and it remains on Senate General Orders. Senate Bill 426 was introduced on February 1, 2022, referred to Senate Committee, and has had action. House Bill 2414 was introduced on February 22, 2021, and referred to the House Committee on Taxation. There was a hearing. It was held on March 24, 2021, and the bill was recommended favorably for passage on March 26 and remains on the House calendar. Late Friday afternoon, we received an updated fiscal impact on provisions of House Bill 2237 as amended by Senate Committee of the Whole. That was provided to KLRD by the Department of Revenue. We will be issuing an updated supplemental note later today to reflect those changes. I'll highlight them for you now and make sure you receive the updated sup note once it's published. For provisions enacting changes to the child care credit, the Department of Revenue estimates that the bill, if enacted, would reduce state general fund revenues by $89,000 in fiscal year 2022, with a similar fiscal effect in future years. And this fiscal note is consistent across the legislation that I've referenced from the 2021-2022 biennium. Relating to the RAWS changes, the Department of Revenue estimates that tax year 2021, the first year where there will be counties of population of 40,000 qualifying, that the allowed credit will be $4.14 million, and it's estimated that the credit will increase by 10% each year. The department also separately provided analysis for provisions related to the taxpayers that were moving from one of those metropolitan areas that David addressed to a RAWS county. The department has a calculation methodology with an average tax rate of 3.6% and an assumption that 20% of individual taxpayers that move from the metropolitan county would meet those requirements of residing in the RAWS for the entire year. Based on their methodology, the department estimates a fiscal impact of $933,926 for fiscal year 2022, and the department made available similar numbers for fiscal year 23 through 25. The combined impact of RAWS changes, so that would be the RAWS with the population increase and the 6 metropolitan counties, would be a total of $5.49 million. So that's taking the existing credit with the new population of 4.56 million plus the 933,926. For fiscal year 23, the cost associated for the metropolitan counties piece alone increases slightly to 1.03 million. The fiscal note also shows impacts for future years, and this reflects the new sunset date. So you go to the full RAWS program for fiscal years 24 and 2025. And so that's going beyond the current law, which was David explained to us recently, Senate Bill 47, that extended that sunset 2 years. For that total, it becomes 6.6 million in fiscal year 2024 and 7.3 million in fiscal year 2025. In addition, as we often see with our Department of Revenue fiscal impact, there is an administrative impact. It is just about $44,500, which are changes that need to be made in business support and quality assurance programming. Mr. Chairman, that is a review of legislation that's pending on the topics of House Bill 2237 and the fiscal note.
Thanks, Melissa. Representative Hoheisel, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Melissa, for that breakdown. One quick question. Do you have the list of the counties that would not be qualified as metropolitan counties, but also are not RAWS counties?
So 95 qualify, and then the 6 on top of that. So I think we can probably bring up that list for you pretty quickly on which ones no longer
Okay, thank you.
are not yet subject to RAWS.
Thank you.
Representative Wassinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How much is the state spending now on the RAWS program? Because the money sounds huge, which I know it's going to increase, but I'm just wondering.
So in the most recent report, tax year 2020 had 482 claims and 1.83 million was allowed for the credit. And so now when you increase that total to the 40,000 qualifying as a rural opportunity zone, the estimate for tax year 2021 becomes 4.14 million.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for Melissa? Melissa, is there a maximum amount allocated for RAWS in a year? I mean, is there a lid on it or not?
David can help me with this. I don't believe that there is a ceiling specified for expenditures for RAWS.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you, Melissa. Oh, David?
Mr. Chairman, yes, in regards to your previous question on when that corporate income tax, restriction was put on the child daycare tax credit, that was done during the 2012 session as part of that income tax bill. So yes, that's when that restriction on just the corporate taxpayer was put on, 2012.
Okay, and so it just never came back on. Okay. Thanks, David. Well, as this is an informational hearing and not a regular hearing, our intent is to gather some information on this. So we do have a couple of people that have presented some information for us and can maybe expand on this a little bit for us. And one of them is Mitch Rucker, Kansas Advocacy for Children. And he was involved, he had contacted me and said he was involved with this over the last couple years and could give us a little history. So Mitch, welcome.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having me. Good morning, committee. Pleasure to be in the Financial Institutions and Rural Development Committee. Is this? Okay, I think we're good. And as a rural Kansan, appreciate the good work of this committee this year. Pleasure to be here to talk about Senate Bill 263, which was amended into House Bill 2237 last week on the Senate floor. This is a policy, as has been mentioned, that is a holdover from last year. It was introduced in both the House and the Senate. The Senate is Senate Bill 263. The House is House Bill 2414. And the bill would have done three main things as originally drafted. There was one change in the Senate committee that is reflected in the bill before you. There were no changes in the House committee when they considered the policy. So the big part of it is, has already been pointed out by the chair. It restores eligibility for the credit to smaller businesses. So when it was in 2012, when some of those smaller businesses were taken off of the tax rolls, their eligibility for this credit was taken away, which makes sense because they wouldn't have a tax liability, so they didn't have a tax credit for it. And then in 2017, when they were put back on the tax rolls, this eligibility for this credit was not restored. And I feel confident in saying that that was not intentional, that that was mostly an oversight. One other key piece of the child care tax credit provision is the implementation of a shared services model. So say you are a smaller business in, say, Morris County, and you want to provide childcare as a benefit to your employees, but there's not a childcare operation that has enough slots. So you want to get together with some of the other business folks who are like-minded, want to provide childcare, and you go together to kind of share those services. So you can contract it out to somebody who knows what they're doing, and share some of those administrative costs, operational costs that you would have to incur if you were to try and set something up on your own. And so that's a novel approach in Kansas. We haven't seen a lot of that. That was included in the bill originally, mostly at the request from a group in Wichita that was working on this. And so we will hopefully see some of that come to fruition in the near future. And then the third provision was changed and actually taken out by the Senate committee, and so it is not in the draft that you see before you. However, it is in House Bill 2414, and that is the size of the credit for businesses who choose to operate on-site care. So say you're like a hospital or a school district or something that provides childcare at your premises. Under this credit, under current law, you would get 50% up to $45,000 in the first year, but then that would drop to 30% up to $30,000 every year after the first year. The bill originally would have kept it at that 50% up to $45,000 for the out years. I think that made sense, given that you have kind of those extra costs of having it in-house. The utilities, the payroll, the property taxes, et cetera, that would be shared if you were paying for care in an offsite facility. The Senate committee decided to take that provision out, and so it is not in the legislation that is before you. As has been alluded to, the fiscal note was $89,000. The size of the credit total, it is capped at $3 million. That is the case in current law, and this bill would not amend that, so it would keep it at that $3 million level. Only about $100,000 of the credit have been used in recent years out of the $3 million, and so we think that by expanding eligibility to the smaller businesses and maybe doing some outreach on this and letting them know that it's available, we can get some increased buy-in on the credit and get more businesses to take advantage of it, and hopefully have the credit do what it's supposed to do without increasing its impact on the budget. So with that, I would thank you for your time and be happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time.
We might, Representative Hsu?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple quick comments more than anything. First of all, the Rules Chair must have been having a very happy day in Senate committee that day. I'm certainly supportive of it, but yeah. Second of all, I'm broadly supportive of this, especially this week, which, if you guys are not aware, is spring break week. So you'll see Astra running around here tomorrow with me. And so if the Capitol, Tom Day, if you're listening, if you want to take advantage of this or a similar program, I would also be inclined to support that.
Mitch, would you expect a number of smaller businesses after the break of almost 10 years here would jump in to this? And since childcare comes up right on top of the list with housing and broadband, when you look at issues in particularly rural Kansas.
Absolutely. I think that there will be some outreach needed to get them, to let them know that this is available to them again. We have great partners in that effort and folks who have already kind of started that effort saying, hey, this is in the works. Maybe, we can get this passed and you'll be able to do this in future years. So the partners at the Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies that serve the entire state, there are 4 of them, doing communities and action workshops that work with local officials, chambers of commerce, county economic development officials, and small businesses. And this is a frequent topic of conversation at those meetings. So yes, I think that there would be buy-in for this credit if we can do our job of getting out there and letting them know that they can take advantage of it.
So it sounds like your recommendation on this would be to put back in the 45,000, put in 45,000 each year is what would be available, 50% up to 45,000.
For the on-site care, that is how the bill was originally drafted. It is the 30% up to $30,000 for the off-site care. So if you're helping, pay for slots in an existing facility or one that opens up and isn't on your premises. So 50% for the on-site, 30% for the off-site care, 50% for the shared services model as well, up to $45,000. And those provisions are reflected in House Bill 2414.
Okay, any other questions for Mitch? Representative Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So how much does child care cost?
A lot. It depends on which county you're in. So if you go to Child Care Aware of Kansas's website, they actually have a page where you can go click on a county and show you like real-time rates up to that date. And in most Kansas counties, it's going to range between 12 to 15% of your median household income per kid. So that's going to be, say, $1,000-ish a month for infant care. And so this would obviously help recoup some of that.
Could you share that information with us sometime?
Absolutely.
On that side, thank you.
So you would, it would impact some parents with kids, but unless their company was chipping in, they'd still have the same issue with paying for childcare?
Yes, so this is up to the employer. This is trying to help businesses buy in to helping support working parents as they look for and pay for childcare. So it would be up to the business to opt in, and this would help them cover some of that cost. It is not a direct tax credit for individuals who pay for childcare.
Okay, any other questions? Representative Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you happen to know in that list of the counties and the percentages that they pay for daycare, do you find that relative to the other counties who are excluded from this program, that they have a higher cost for daycare?
I believe that that the tax credit, the child care tax credit, would be available regardless of which county you live in.
Oh, it's not just the Ross County?
It shouldn't. Indeed. I guess I should make sure that is in the bill. When I read the new version, I believe that it applies universally. That was certainly the original intent, is that all counties would have access.
Okay, any other questions for Mitch? Thank you for providing the information, Mitch.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, and hope you consider it favorably.
Okay, and then also have on the RAWS portion of the bill, have Rachel Willis from the Department of Commerce that contacted us and wanted to provide some information. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Rachel Willis, the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Commerce. So I'll keep my remarks really brief here, but wanted to provide a little bit more information about the RAWS program. So the Rural Opportunity Zone program was introduced in 2012. The main goal of the program is to attract residents and businesses to rural areas where population losses have been the steepest. So the program initially targeted about 50 counties, and it has been expanded in recent years to include 95 counties. So the program has 2 individual financial incentives, a state income tax waiver and a student loan repayment assistance program. These are funded through a single appropriations of $5 million, though they maintain very separate eligibility requirements. In 2021, there were 77 of the 95 counties offered the student loan repayment assistance, and 18 counties offered the income tax waiver component. So with this current bill, HB 2237, as amended by the Senate, we have one primary concern. This is the expansion of that RAS income tax credit to include individuals who move to a RAS county from a metropolitan county. So those counties include Douglas, Johnson, Leavenworth, Sedgwick, Shawnee, and Wyandotte counties. This expansion of eligibility to those metropolitan counties incentivizes what we believe will be in-state poaching of workers from our 6 largest counties. So this change really goes against what we think is the purpose of this program, which is to help build our statewide workforce. So really keying in on that statewide, so building it as a whole. So we think that by simply incentivizing these folks to move out of those metropolitan areas to these rural areas, we're just going to be shuffling around our current workforce numbers, not building those numbers up. So that was our main concern, and just wanted to share that with you today. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rachel, for being here today. So just to clarify, the Department of Commerce stands opposed to the metropolitan piece.
Yeah, we're just afraid, like I said, that this is just going to be reshuffling our workforce. And we're really believe that the purpose of this was to grow our workforce statewide.
I just wanted to clarify that it's not neutral, it's opposed.
To that one particular element.
Gotcha.
Overall, we stand neutral.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
He took your question, or you have another one? Representative Burkamp?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I have 2 questions. Number one, so if a kid from like a farm goes to K-State, KU, wherever, would they be eligible for this if they then move back to their farm at the end of the day in a rural opportunity zone?
Yeah, so good question, and I can review the eligibility requirements for both components. So for the income tax credit, like I said, it provides a waiver for 100% of a participant's state income tax liability up to 5 years. You have to live outside of Kansas currently for 5 years prior to establishing a residence in that RAS county. You have to earn less than $10,000 in a Kansas source of income in each of those 5 years prior to establishing your residency in that RAS county. And then you must reside in that county from January 1st to December 31st of that year the waiver is requested.
And then I was reading through the Department of Commerce report on the RAS program, and I just want to know, I guess, what your thoughts are on maybe how it can be improved or modified, because I'm just quoting what you guys had said, but it says, further, RAS did little to influence rural relocation decisions. Like survey data found the majority of program participants would have moved to a RAS county even without the program's financial incentives. So I guess what are we doing different that's going to change that aspect of the report?
Yeah, so we're not necessarily addressing that at all in this bill, in HB 2237. Last year, the sunset was extended, so we've got another year, and we've got time to really analyze it and dig into that. When this bill was introduced last session, we had some other ideas that would get more to your question specifically. So we would like to take this extra time over the summer and the fall and to get another group together to really analyze it and figure out ways that we can improve it. I will say that the survey results indicate primary reasons for moving, and a lot of those are specifically related to family and some of those other things. I don't know if we'll ever be able to compete with some of those more value-based, reasons for moving back, but I think we could probably do a better job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would point out, I disagree, and I've told you this with the findings, because I live in a county that uses it, but one of the main things we do is to keep people from moving to Oklahoma to live and to live in Kansas. And some of the big companies, the aircraft companies and the farm equipment companies use it and have been effective with getting people to live in Kansas and be able to bring some value for some of the incentives that were used to bring those companies in. So I think there are positives to it that aren't shown, and I would agree. There's in this bill, there's no mileage limitation of moving from one of the metro counties, so I could live right on the line of a Ross County and just move across, move a mile, and I'd be eligible for it. Nothing else has changed except my residence. Okay. Yeah. So, Representative Wassinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's interesting that Commerce is worried about us out in western and rural Kansas grabbing a few people from Johnson County and Wyandotte and Sedgwick to come back to the rural areas. So if you're just, what word did you use?
Shuffling.
We would like to see a little bit more shuffling the opposite direction, because I shuffled a few people to Johnson County, so I don't see that as an issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And it is correct, though, Rachel, that you could move back from a metro county or any non-Ross county, which there's few non-Ross counties now, but you could move back to a Ross County and obtain the student loan assistance benefits, though, right now.
Yes, so the student loan repayment assistance has, like I said, different eligibility requirements. And those consist of that you have to have an associate's, bachelor's, or postgraduate degree prior to moving to that Ross County. You have to have an outstanding student loan balance. You have to be able to provide proof of all of those things, right? So your residency currently, and then your previous address, again, your degree, your student loan balance. And you also have to have a county or employer sponsor. So you have to have that sponsor in order to receive any funding from the state. So yeah, those are the eligibility requirements.
Representative Shue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Representative Wasinger's concern, I think that is a legitimate policy thing to look at and examine. I think the provisions contained in this particular bill that we only have a concur, non-concur, and then conference committee on creates different incentives than what you want. Maybe we do want that. That's a good thing to look at. We don't want people to move across the line or a mile down the line and be able to get a tax credit for that specifically. So I think that's a valid thing for us to look at, maybe next year in a separate bill, in its own bill. I think the way that it's written in this particular version that we have limited choices on based on the procedure is a different conversation.
And we actually had a bill still have it in this committee on a RAWS change that we were asked that you would like to go back and look at other options, but it did address some options in it on kids going to technical school and community college, being able to stay in their county and still get some student loan repayment assistance, and it had some good options in it that makes it a much better program. But those in that bill, there was no contemplation, though I don't believe, of moving back from a metro county into the Ross area, other than you could obtain student loan repayment assistance. So, but I think that there are some good tweaks that could be made after the period of time that we've had to watch the program and see what it would do. And the other hindrance that I find in it is basically, right now, you basically have to have an employer or a county sponsor, and like my county puts up enough to cover 10 people, but the waiting list is 60 people, so those people don't have a chance. So I know the new bill had some options in there for other sponsors to be able to do it. So all of those would, I think, make a big improvement because counties are only going to protect, especially smaller counties, are only going to put in, have the ability to do so much. And if the program is popular, then there's not a lot of options to cover those. But other questions? Melissa?
Mr. Chairman, I have the information regarding the number of counties, and I thought it would actually be helpful to show you the representation here. So hopefully it will share here in a second. So these are the counties that participate in RAWS and those that do not. The gray is the area that you're looking for the counties that are not currently included in the list of 95. Those include the 6 that are identified in the metropolitan counties in House Bill 2237, Douglas, Johnson, Leavenworth, Sedgwick, Shawnee, and Wyandotte. The counties not included in either the 95 or the 6 are Butler, Reno, Riley, and Saline. So that's now where we stand with RAWS.
Thank you, Melissa. Now, it was fairly easy to determine when there's that number that are in 95 out of the 105.
I had some help from Lindsay here at the table and someone downstairs, and we worked our way through it.
Well, good.
And we appreciate the Department of Commerce had a very helpful map to display.
Well, how about, is there anyone else that has any information that they would like to present to us today on House Bill 2237 to build our knowledge on this bill and thoughts on this bill? Any other questions or comments from the committee on 2237, which, as mentioned, it's a concur, non-concur, and then it will, and we've already non-concurred on it, so we'll be going to a conference committee on it. But any other comments, questions for it? Well, if not, appreciate both Mitch Rucker and Rachel Willis being here today to give some information, Melissa and your research team for all of their work to get us some good answers on some of the questions that came up, and David, for you on the review. And we will have a meeting on Wednesday. We're still, there's another concur, non-concur that's coming in. I believe we should probably have it today, and it'll too will be an informational hearing to try to gain some information on it. It involves housing tax credits, and neither one of these that we've actually had, but it falls into line with some of the things we've looked at this year for housing in rural areas and ways to assist. So that will be Wednesday. Watch your email for more details on that as we have it. And I know that we've got had some calls on people that want to present some information to us on it, and there may be a few more, so watch that. Appreciate you coming in this morning on this Monday when it looked like this time last week we were done, but these came in and we're not finished yet. So see you on Wednesday, and our informational hearing is adjourned.